Harmony Creek Bridge was a local legend. A skeletal structure of rusted iron and splintered, would that moan whenever the wind blew just right. Locals said it was haunted, but then again, locals said that about every old thing in our town. For me and my friends Josh and Sarah, it was just a shortcut. A quicker way to get from one side of the sleepy town to the other without having to walk all the way around the woods. We'd crossed it 1,000 times, laughing at the creaks and groans, daring each other to look down into the murky, slow-moving water below. One sweltering July evening, we were heading back from the town's annual summer fair. The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and orange. The air was thick with the scent of popcorn and damp earth. We were buzzing with sugar and the thrill of a day well spent. As we approached the bridge, a sudden chill cut through the humid air. The usual symphony of crickets and frogs had fallen silent. An unnatural quiet had settled over Harmony Creek. Josh, ever the brave one, broke the silence. "Spooky tonight?" he said, his voice a little too loud. Sarah just shivered and pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound caught in my throat. Something felt wrong. The bridge loomed before us, a dark silhouette against the dying light. Usually, the street lights from the far side would cast a welcoming glow. But tonight, they seemed distant and weak, as if afraid to touch the old iron. We started across, our footsteps echoing unnaturally loud on the wooden planks. The bridge swayed more than usual, a low groan rising from its metal bones. Halfway across, Sarah suddenly stopped. "Did you guys hear that?" she whispered, her eyes wide. Josh and I froze. We listened, straining our ears against the silence. Then we heard it. A soft, wet, scraping sound coming from directly beneath us. Scrape. Drag. Scrape. "It's probably just a branch caught in the current," I said, trying to sound convincing, but my heart was pounding against my ribs. The scraping sound stopped. A moment later, a different noise replaced it. A soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap. 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 It was coming from the underside of the very plank I was standing on. I jumped back as if I'd been shocked. The tapping followed me, moving to the plank I'd just stepped onto. Tap. 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 Josh, pale but determined, knelt down and peered through a gap between the boards. He was only there for a second before he scrambled back, a strangled gasp escaping his lips. "What? What did you see?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Josh just shook his head, his eyes locked on the space below. "I don't know," he stammered. "It was long and pale, like fingers." A wave of pure, cold terror washed over me. This wasn't a branch. This wasn't an animal. We were standing on a cage, and something was trying to get out. The tapping became more frantic, more insistent. It was no longer just below us, it was everywhere. Tapping from the left, tapping from the right, as if dozens of hands were drumming against the underside of the bridge, testing for a weak spot. Then came the smell, a foul, cloying odor of stagnant water and decay, so thick it made my eyes water. It was the smell of something that had been dead for a very, very long time. We had to get off the bridge. Now. "Run!" I yelled, and we didn't need a second invitation. We sprinted, our feet pounding on the wood, the bridge groaning and shaking violently under our frantic escape. The tapping turned into a furious banging, a deafening cacophony that seemed to shake the very foundations of the old structure. Just as we reached the end of the bridge and our feet hit solid ground, a sound pierced the night that I will never forget. It was a shriek, a high, thin wail of pure agony and rage that didn't sound human. It was the sound of something ancient and full of hate. We didn't look back. We ran and ran, our lungs burning. The terrible shriek echoing behind us, chasing us, all the way back to the safety of the town's lights. We never spoke about what happened that night. Not really. We tried to pretend it was just our imaginations, a prank, a trick of the light and sound. But we knew what we heard, what we felt, what we smelled. We took the long way around the woods from then on. No shortcut was worth crossing that bridge again. Years passed. We grew up, and I eventually moved away for college. But the memory of that night never left me. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I'd wake up in a cold sweat, the sound of tapping echoing in my ears. I came back to town for a visit last fall. It had changed, of course. New shops, new houses. But the old Harmony Creek Bridge was still there. Or what was left of it. The town council had finally decided to tear it down and build a new, concrete one. The demolition was already underway. I walked down to the creek, a strange mix of dread and morbid curiosity pulling me forward. The bridge was half gone, its iron skeleton exposed to the sky. Demolition crews were working on the far side. I stood by the creek bed, watching the water flow, remembering. That's when I saw him. An old construction worker, sitting on a pile of rubble, his face ashen. He was staring at the exposed support pillars of the old bridge. I walked over. "Everything okay?" I asked. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with a look I recognized all too well. It was the same look Josh had on his face that night. "We found something," he said, his voice a dry rasp. When we pulled out the old wooden pilings from the creek bed, he pointed a trembling finger toward one of the massive concrete footings. "Down there, in the mud." My blood ran cold. "What was it?" I whispered, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. He swallowed hard. "At first, we thought it was just driftwood, tangled up, but it wasn't. It was bones. Hundreds of them. Human bones, animal bones, all mixed together. And they were all covered in these marks." He shuddered, like something had been gnawing on them, scraping them clean. He paused, taking a shaky breath. "But that's not the worst part. Nailed to the underside of the old bridge, right over where we found the bones. We found this." He pulled a dirty, tattered piece of cloth from his pocket. It was a child's worn-out leather shoe. There were dozens of them, he whispered. Shoes, little toys, scraps of clothing. All nailed to the bottom of the bridge, like trophies. A cold dread settled deep in my bones. The tapping, it wasn't trying to get out. It was showing us. It was showing us what it had collected. All the things that had fallen into the creek, or been thrown from the bridge, or maybe been dragged down from above. The worker looked at me, his eyes pleading for an explanation he knew I couldn't give. "What kind of monster does that?" he asked. I had no answer. I just stared at the new, sterile concrete bridge being built, a monument over an ancient, hidden grave. And I knew with a certainty that chilled me to my very soul, that just because you tear down the cage, it doesn't mean the thing inside is gone. It just means it's free. If you enjoyed this scary American horror story, The Thing Under the Bridge, make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment, share the video with friends who love horror, and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying stories. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next nightmare. Sleep well, if you dare.